Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to the Windy City Politics and History channel. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the 2024 presidential election in a hypothetical matchup between Joe Biden and Chris Christie. Now, Chris Christie is the former governor of the state of New Jersey, and he just recently entered the Republican presidential race for the Republican nomination. He is running in the primary, and I'm going to be taking a look at a hypothetical matchup between him and incumbent Democratic President Joe Biden. Now, here's the caveat. Chris Christie is probably not going to win the nomination, but he was polling considerably well in the primary despite the fact that he has been out of public office since, I want to say, 2018. Whenever New Jersey's new governor, current governor, Phil Murphy, was sworn in, he won in 2017. I don't know if he was sworn in at the end of 2017 or the beginning of 2018. So we're going to be taking a look at the hypothetical matchup between these two. So all the West Coast Democratic states are going to be safe. I think these have shifted into the safe category. Hawaii is going to be safe. D.C., Maryland, Delaware. And now New Jersey, Chris Christie probably won't have appeal there because he did leave office with a very astronomically low approval rating. Same with Connecticut, Rhode Island, he won't have appeal there. Vermont, in Massachusetts, in New York, in Maine's 1st District. And then Colorado is another safe Democratic state. I think Colorado has shifted to the left regardless of whether or not Trump is on the ballot or a Trump Republican is on the ballot. You had Joe O'Dea who ran for Senate in Colorado, and he was more of a moderate Republican, and he still lost by almost 15 points, even though most polls showed him losing only by 10. So I think Colorado is a state that has shifted into the Democratic column, and I would be willing to call it a safe Democratic state at this point. And then Illinois is the other safe Democratic state. And now Chris Christie will win states like Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, South and North Dakota, Nebraska's at large, and the 1st and 3rd District electoral votes. Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia. And then, Alaska is going to be likely but not really competitive. Same with South Carolina. Same with Missouri, same with Indiana, same with Montana. Indiana, Montana, and Missouri are 3 states that I think, will be likely in favor of Chris Christie, but somewhere in the 12 to 14 point range where it's not competitive, because he's not going to turn out the working class voters that Trump did in 2016 and 2020. And, let's start with the likely states. Let's start on the Republican side with the likely states. So Iowa will probably win by around 7. And that's really the only competitive likely. I guess Texas will probably win by around 5 to 7, maybe by 10, considering, he's more in the mold of Mitt Romney than Trump. But Iowa, Texas are the competitive Republican likely states. And now moving on to the likely Democratic states, New Mexico and Virginia, I think at this point are pretty much out of reach for the Republicans. I think, Republicans, if they're going to spend their resources somewhere in a likely state, maybe they should spend it in New Hampshire, which is also likely Democratic, probably goes to Biden by around 5, Virginia and New Mexico by around 10, Minnesota by around 7, and Maine's at large by around 10. So, the states that the Republicans will be looking to flip if Chris Christie is the nominee would be probably Minnesota and New Hampshire. New Mexico and Virginia are probably out of reach. And now moving on to the lean states. So Ohio, I think, is high lean margin for Chris Christie. I think, he wins there in the ballpark of around 4 points. I don't think he'll get the same share of votes from the working class voters that Trump did. So I think he does worse than Trump in Ohio, but I still think he wins by probably around 4 points. And then North Carolina, same way. I think he wins there by around 3 points, similar to how Romney did in 2012. I think Romney won North Carolina by around 2 points in 2012, and I think that'll be similar if Chris Christie is the nominee. And then Georgia, he'll flip back Georgia because he's a more moderate Republican, and he'll win there by around 2 points. Florida, he'll win by around 4 because that state has shifted to the right. And then Maine's 2nd congressional district, he'll probably win by around 3. And that's pretty much it. And then Moving on to the lean Democratic states, Nebraska's 2nd district has shifted to the left. And even though it was gerrymandered by the Republicans to make it more Republican, I think Joe Biden still wins by around 4 to 5 points there. And then Michigan, I would honestly throw Michigan in the low likely column if Biden's facing off against Chris Christie, just simply because Michigan was the closest state that flipped to the Republicans in 2016. You saw in 2022 how well the Democrats performed in Michigan. And additionally, the Michigan GOP is in disarray. And Chris Christie doesn't have the appeal to the working class voters that Donald Trump had. So, I'd throw Michigan in the low likely column for the Democrats. And then I'd throw Pennsylvania in the lean column and Wisconsin in the lean column. Pennsylvania probably goes to Biden by around 3 to 4, Wisconsin by around 1 to 2. And with that, Joe Biden is at 270. And, this looks more competitive than it is. I think Chris Christie could narrowly flip back Arizona by a tilt margin, but that state has shifted to the Democratic Party as well. And, I think maybe Nevada could be competitive. Biden would win there probably by around a point. But at the end of the day, Joe Biden wins 276 to 262. And while this is a somewhat competitive map, you would say, I don't really think Chris Christie has a chance of beating Joe Biden. I don't think Chris Christie can win in Wisconsin, can win in Pennsylvania, and those are 2 states that he needs to win. Maybe he could win in Nevada, but I doubt it. I think Chris Christie loses here. And even though it's going to be closer electorally, I don't really think it would be that competitive for him. I think all these Democratic states, if Biden were to face off against Chris Christie, go pretty solid for the Democrat. And, I think Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin are all out of reach for Chris Christie. And just to show you what the map would look like, I'm going to categorize it with all the states as the solid color. And the reason Chris Christie loses is a lot of the states that used to be Republican, for example, Virginia, Colorado, and there's a few others like Arizona, Georgia. Arizona and Georgia have become more competitive and are more purple now. Same with North Carolina. Whereas Virginia and Colorado have become pretty solid Democratic states. And for that reason, I don't think Chris Christie, even being a moderate, could win them back. And that's what the Republicans need to do, is they either need to win the Rust Belt or they need to win the states back in the Sun Belt that used to be Republican. And, Chris Christie won 2 of the states in the Sun Belt, but he couldn't win back Colorado, and he's not going to win back Virginia. That's not the Sun Belt, but he's not going to be able to win some of these states that Mitt Romney was competitive in or that George Bush was competitive in. And that's why Joe Biden would defeat Chris Christie 276 electoral votes to 262 electoral votes. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you can get notified whenever I post a new video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.